My name's Lieutenant Xavier Smith. I've been at the Richmond Ambulance Authority for about 5 years now. I've responded to plenty of crashes in my career as a EMT and a paramedic, and I've seen the difference that seatbelts can make in saving someone's life. Normally, the injuries that we see are a lot more severe when patients aren't wearing seatbelts when they're driving. So one of the most impactful situations that I think I've been in was when I was dispatched to a crash, and I pulled up on scene to see just a pile of metal, and I could not fathom that that was an actual vehicle until I got out of my ambulance and walked up to the scene. The driver was out of the vehicle walking around, and I knew in that moment that they were wearing their seatbelt and that seatbelt saved their life. When I arrive on scene and I find that a driver's not wearing their seatbelt, it's a little frustrating just because it's so easy to get in your vehicle and then put your seatbelt on. It just takes 2 seconds. I worked night shift for 4 years here, and it'd be 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, and we show up on scene and there's nobody in the vehicle, and we're like, where's our patient at? Where's the driver of the vehicle? We took flashlights and we just walk along the tree line and we'll find somebody in the woods. They were still breathing and they still had a pulse, so we were able to get them into the ambulance and subsequently transport them to the hospital. However, if they were wearing a seatbelt, the time from us getting on scene to us getting to them and then getting them to the hospital would have been significantly decreased because we wouldn't have had to look for them. So some of the most common injuries that we see in car crashes when people aren't wearing seatbelts include head injuries, facial injuries, neck injuries, chest injuries, and back injuries. Most of these stem from you hitting your chest or your head on the windshield, the dashboard, the steering wheel. But if you are wearing your seatbelt, all of those injuries can be contained. You may hit your head on the steering wheel or the airbag. However, your injuries won't be as significant. If you don't wear your seatbelt, start building the habit. Get in your vehicle, put it on. Don't move your vehicle until you put your seatbelt on. It's the safest thing to do.
My name is Michael Lesage, and I'm a trooper with the Virginia State Police. A moment in my career that reinforced seatbelt usage for me was a few months ago. I was involved in a motor vehicle crash on Interstate 64. I was struck by a wrong-way driver who was traveling over the posted speed limit, and I thankfully sustained very minor injuries, and I firmly believe that's because I was properly seatbelted. When I first started, I was a young police officer, and I was part of the, I can't wear my seatbelt in my patrol car because if something happens, I need to be able to get out immediately. Or maybe my holster was in the way. That has since changed. I wear my seatbelt 100% of the time, on and off duty, for my safety because they work. Some of the most common excuses I hear from motorists for not wearing their seatbelt are it's not comfortable, it rides on the shoulder or the neck, and it gets annoying. Or they've heard that they're not safe, they won't save their lives in a crash, or they're afraid to get stuck in their car. I'm here to tell you that seatbelts are statistically proven to save your life. Seatbelt enforcement is particularly important, whether it's a warning or a summons. If I can make that contact and maybe change someone's mind about wearing a seatbelt, that's really what I'm after. And I just want to make sure that these folks get home, because the alternative is if they're involved in a crash and they unfortunately don't make it home, now it falls on me to notify their family that unfortunately, their loved one is not coming home because they didn't wear their seatbelt. The impacts I have seen on families for those who have succumbed to injuries in a crash for not wearing their seatbelt is devastating. It is easily the worst part of my job. I dread that part of it. It is just shattering for me to see a family member crumble in tears when I have to deliver the news that their loved one is not coming home simply because they didn't wear their seatbelt. Just take that extra second. Please wear your seatbelt for your safety. And if not for yourself, do it for your family. So someone's not knocking on their door to let them know you won't be home that evening or ever again because your seatbelt was not worn.
My son Christopher was a joy, a delight. He loved life, he loved his friends, he loved animals. He would always go to the neighbors and try to see their pets because we couldn't have one because he was allergic. One of our neighbor's dogs, he would always bring to the house. It was almost like his dog. So he just loved life. He had just turned 18 and just graduated from high school. The worst night of our lives was the early hours of July 4th. We had that horrid knock on the door. The police officer and chaplain were there. We knew something had happened to Christopher. They began to tell us that he was in a car crash and was thrown from the car. He didn't have a seatbelt on. We were shocked. He always wore a seatbelt every time. It was just that one time. The driver decided he was going to go as fast as he could down that road, 80 miles per hour, and lost control of the car. Then Christopher was thrown from the car to his death right here on this road because he didn't have a seatbelt on. The rest of the kids had their seatbelts on. Christopher, we called him Critter. He's the baby. He was just the cutest thing with this curly blonde hair. He was the joy of my heart. The message I would like to share with others is that it is so important to wear your seatbelt every time in every seat. Seatbelts can save your life so that you can make it home to your loved ones. It just takes that one click.